we may not make as much money, remotely as much money as somebody who is, plays out the last 30 days or 30 weeks of a real wild orgy. I mean, these things, they tend to be the wildest toward the end. But that gets back to the question, of Cinderella at the ball. I mean, you're there, you're having a wonderful time, the punch bowl is flowing, and the dance partners are getting prettier all the time, and at midnight it's going to turn to pumpkins and mice. And, you look around the room and you think just one more dance, one more good-looking guy, one more glass of champagne, and you think you're going to get out of there at midnight. And, of course, everybody else thinks they're going to get out of there at midnight, too. And in the end, it does turn to pumpkins and mice. And in this game, as I've said, Adam Smith said it many years ago. A fellow named Jerry Goodman wrote under the pseudonym of Adam Smith. Says the problem with that particular dance for Cinderella is that there are no clocks on the wall. And in the markets, if you're talking copper now, if you're talking internet stocks in 1999, if you're talking uranium stocks in the 1950s, there are no clocks on the wall. And the party does get to be more fun, minute after minute, hour after hour, and then it does turn to pumpkins and mice.
Thanks to high energy prices, other factors, Russia's been one of the best performing markets recently. The country's financial condition has stabilized since the 1990s. A fledgling middle class is taking shape as personal incomes grow. And there are also risks, political, legal, risk to minority investors. But there are also potentially great values among second-tier companies there. I was wondering what needs to happen in Russia for you to invest there, whether for Berkshire or for yourself, and what kind of companies would interest you there?
Yeah, it sounds like you may own a few Russian stocks yourself. I would, as you know, in 1998, Walter Wriston's don't default in 1998. In Russia, at least, he was proven wrong. And Charlie and I inherited a business at Solomon that was in the oil business, big time out in Siberia. And there came a time when we got to dig the holes. We sent the money in, and as long as we were drilling, we were welcome. And then we wanted to start taking the oil out. After our money had been used to drill the holes, they weren't quite as friendly. In fact, it was really kind of extreme what took place with us. So having had a few experiences like that, it might take us quite a while before we wanted to sink a lot of money into Russia. It may be different now, but I don't think it's any certainty. I had breakfast in Sun Valley 3 years ago, this July, I believe it was, with Kordakovsky, and we had a translator there, and he talked to me about whether he was thinking about listing Yukos on the New York Stock Exchange, but he said, it would require registering with the SEC or something, and he wasn't sure whether that would be too dangerous. Well, I don't think he listed there, but he went back to Russia, and he's been in jail now for, just about ever since. And Yukos was put into bankruptcy with tax claims, and I just think it's a little hard to develop a lot of confidence that the world has changed permanently there in terms of its attitude toward capital, and particularly toward outside capital. Charlie, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, the situation reminds me a little of polypetroleum, which years ago was much traded in Los Angeles. And the saying always was, if they ever do find any oil, that old man will steal it. And I'm afraid we have some of that problem in many of the countries in which we're seeking for oil.
Didn't we really have the livelihood of our guys threatened over there, Charlie? I think we sent in some people to get out the equipment, and they said if they sent in the people to get out the equipment, not only would the equipment not get out, but the people wouldn't get out. So we understood the situation. That was not that long ago.
No.
My question is for both Mr. Buffett and Mr. Munger. The stock market in South America has been growing quickly in the last few years. What do you think about investment opportunities in South America, given the political environment and underlying risks?
Yeah, our problem in many markets is that we have to put a lot of money to work to move the needle at Berkshire. We've got a market value of $135 billion or something like that. So we are looking to put out hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars at a minimum when we look at marketable securities. And that really narrows the field in terms of countries or in terms of businesses within those countries. But, we made an investment about 3 years ago in PetroChina. Now, PetroChina is one of the 5 largest oil companies in the world. And yet we were only able to, even there, to get $400 and some million into it, which fortunately is worth a couple of billion now. But here is a country the size of China, the largest company in that country, and even there we only got $400 and some million in, although we would have liked to have gotten more. But we weren't afraid to go. We wanted to get paid more for going into China, and we did, because we don't know the game as well there. We would feel the same way in Brazil. I mean, a great beer company down there that a friend of mine ran, and we should have been in that. We knew he was a great manager, and he was going to do a great job with it. So Brazil would not be off limits at all, but we'd have to be able to get a lot of money into a business we understood at an attractive price. We would want it to be cheaper than if it were in the United States. We wouldn't understand the tax laws as well, the nuances of governance, a whole bunch of things. But after allowing for that, at a price, we would do it. We're unlikely to put a lot of money into Brazil's a big country, but we're unlikely to put a lot of money into really small economies because we can't get enough money into them. Charlie?
No more.
Number 11. Our general experience is that we don't look at things very much that are hot at any given time. I know nothing about the biochemistry or anything of the sort. I have a son who was head of the ethanol board in Nebraska, and if I notice that he suddenly starts getting richer than I am, I will suspect that I should start looking at ethanol very hard. But so far, I haven't seen tangible evidence of that. There's no question ethanol usage is going to grow. I mean, that we will see. Generally speaking, agricultural processing business have not earned high returns on capital. I mean, if you look at Cargill, you look at ADM, you look at the big processors, that has not been a great business. And ethanol could prove an exception, but I'm not sure how you gain a significant competitive advantage over time, with any given ethanol plant. And if you get too many of them around, it will not be a good thing when you're turning out a commodity. Charlie?
Well, my attitude is even more hostile than Warren's. I have just enough glimmers of thermodynamics left in me to suspect that that it takes more fossil fuel energy to create ethanol than you can get out of the ethanol you've created. If so, that's a very stupid way to try and solve an energy problem.
Well, considering my family situation, I would say I have friends who like ethanol and I have friends who don't like ethanol. And I want my position to be perfectly clear. I'm for my friends.